All right, guys, welcome. Listen, you ever asked yourself, why am I broke? You ever thought about that? Why am I broke? Why do I struggle to make more money? Why do I struggle to create wealth? Well, today we're going to talk about that. Today we're going to talk about what exactly is keeping you from creating the life of financial prosperity that you desire, what's holding you back, and what you can do to overcome that. All right, let's get into it. So, guys, welcome. I'm your host, Jose Gonzalez, aka Mr. Wealth Mindset, and you are watching episode 3 of the Wealth Mindset podcast. We've been on a short hiatus, had a few things to juggle and get together, but we are back, and I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, if you're new to this podcast, new to this channel, this podcast was intended to help Christian families navigate their finances, their relationships, so that you can create the life of prosperity that you desire under, in a way that aligns and honors God. So, with that, today we're talking about what's keeping you broke or what keeps other people broke. Okay, what keeps people financially destitute and unable to achieve the financial prosperity that they desire in their life? Okay, and before we get into it, let me just establish this right here. All right, because the reason that I talk about this is the reason that I created this platform and this podcast is primarily to help people, especially people in the Christian world, all right, especially believers, overcome the limited beliefs that we have around money. You see, there's some people who believe, especially in the church community, that there's nobility in poverty. There's some people that think that that being wealthy or being rich is greedy, or something that is ungodly, unchristian like. But that's actually not true. Okay, God actually desires for us to have prosperity, all kinds of prosperity, health prosperity, wealth prosperity. But we've been taught a lot of things. We've been programmed with a lot of misinformation that causes many people to believe that becoming rich or becoming wealthy or having financial prosperity is evil. There's people who've been taught to believe that the reason that they're poor is because rich people are rich, and rich people are keeping you in lack. And so today we're going to debunk a lot of these myths, a lot of this misinformation that keeps people in this psychological prison, thinking that a life of prosperity is not only something that they should have, but something that God actually desires for you. All right. So let's talk about what exactly is a wealth mindset, right? Before you can debunk it, before you can, adopt a wealth mindset, we need to understand what it is. So let's start with the word mindset, right? Because we know what wealth means, even though I'm going to describe it. Um, Maybe because it could mean different things to different people, right? But let's start with the mindset part. So mindset is a set of beliefs that you have adopted and you have accepted as being true. Now, notice what I said there. I said it's a set of beliefs which you've adopted, right? That part is simple, but that you have accepted as being true. Now, why is that critical? Because sometimes people have certain beliefs that are not true, yet they have accepted them as being true. Okay? So this is easily illustrated when you talk, with children, for example, right? The first time that a child finds out, and I'm sorry if you're finding out for the first time, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the first time that a child finds out that there is no Santa Claus, okay, that there's no Santa Claus, that Santa Claus is made up, that there's not, like a guy with a red suit and a big belly and a white jolly beard that's coming through your fireplace, coming into your house the night before Christmas and leaving presents for you. Okay? Because up until that time, that child is of the mindset that Santa Claus is real, right? That he's written a letter to some guy in the North Pole who's watching over you 365. He knows if you're naughty, he knows if you're nice, and he's accepted this as being true. So when the child finds out that there is no Santa Claus, not only does it disrupt its view, distort its view of reality, but it's actually quite upsetting. All right. In many cases, it's quite upsetting because not only are they upset that there's no Santa Claus, right? To find out that their parents are really Santa Claus, but also in many cases, they wonder, well, why did they lie to me? Right? Why does someone want me to believe this thing which is not true? So, of course, there's a reason, right? There's imagination, there's a lore, there's different reasons why why parents would tell their kids, "Hey, there's Santa Claus." All right, but the bottom line is that that belief is something that they accepted as being true. And so for us to understand mindset, and especially a wealth mindset, first we have to understand that a lot of these things that we've been taught, whether they're true or not, what makes them part of our way of thinking is the fact that we accept them as truth. Okay. So it's very important to establish that, because the point that I'm trying to make is that when you discover new information, you have a choice. Okay. See, many times people discover information that disrupts their current reality, with the child who finds out there's no Santa Claus. It disrupts their current reality, their current perception of reality. All right. And even that child, when they find out, when they're told, when they're informed that there is no Santa Claus, they now have to make a choice. Do I continue to believe in Santa Claus because it's comfortable? It's what I've always known, or do I choose to change my thinking? So I start off with that example because it illustrates to me something that's paramount to developing a wealth mindset. And that is that, you see, children, babies, humans, we're born with zero beliefs, with zero ideas, with zero perceptions of the world. Everything that we've come to believe, understand, know, perceive, we have learned from someone or something. Okay? All of our beliefs we have learned from someone or something. All right? And we've accepted these things as truth. We've accepted these things as truth. So oftentimes when people come upon new information, there's a natural resistance. Okay, there's a natural resistance to change because it disrupts. It disrupts your view of the world. It disrupts your perception of reality, and that can be very uncomfortable, very unnerving, very disheartening. So when we discuss this notion of adopting a wealth mindset, I want you to understand that for someone who does not currently have wealth, financial prosperity, or abundance, all right, that is the result of their current way of thinking. If someone is poor, broke, okay, that is the result of the current mindset that they have. And so oftentimes it's very difficult for people to actually adopt a wealth mindset because it challenges, it disrupts their current perception of reality. It challenges, it disrupts their current beliefs, which they have accepted as being true. All right. So I'm going to get into that. I'm going to share with you 10 things, 10 factors that keep people from breaking through the limited beliefs that they have around wealth creation, financial prosperity, and money. Okay? So, like I said at the top of the show, if you're broke and maybe you're wondering why, God, you could have made me broke or good looking. Why'd you make me broke, right? Why not both? I'm here to tell you that poverty is a condition of the mind. And if you can adopt a wealth mindset, okay, if you can adopt a wealth mindset, you can be rich too. And not only can you do it, God actually desires it for you. All right. So I defined mindset. Let me briefly define wealth. One of my favorite quotes, and I forgot who says this quote. I don't know if it's Warren Buffett. I can't remember right now, but they say being rich is having money, being wealthy is having time. Okay? Being rich is having money, being wealthy is having time. What's the difference? Right? A lot of people think that being wealthy is just having a bunch of money. Well, that's a part of it, right? That's a part of it. But wealth really is when you're able to live life on your terms. Okay? When you're able to live life on your terms, when you're able to have control and power over the life that you live without being controlled by anyone else. So there's some people who make a lot of money, but they aren't actually wealthy because their ability to make that money is contingent on certain factors where they actually don't really have control of their life. I'm gonna talk about this in a future podcast episode, but I'll use the example, right? Because there's 4 levels of value that you can create, but I'm gonna use one of those examples of levels of value for people that have a job, and that is, sometimes when people work in management, right? People have a job and they work in management. Maybe they make $100,000 a year, maybe they make $300,000 a year. But let me tell you something, when you're in a management position in a job and you're making 100,000, 200,000, that job makes it very clear to you that they own your time. Okay? That job makes it very clear to you that they compensate you in such a way that they don't care about if you have, if you want to go to your kid's music recital, if you want to see your kid play sports, if this is a particular birthday, they don't care about that. They pay you, they compensate you well enough so that they basically own you and your time. So to me, that's not really wealth. That's having money, that's making a substantial income, and that can provide for a particular lifestyle, but it's not really wealth. Wealth is when you can live life on your terms, right? So, how do you create financial prosperity? How do you create a wealth mindset, right? So, I'm going to share with you, as I said, 10 things that keep people, right, trapped in the limiting beliefs that keep people broke. All right. So the first thing on the list is our upbringing, right? Our family structure and our upbringing. Now, a lot of people will say something like, well, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon, right? And they'll look at people that have money, and a lot of times we presume that when someone, you know, has rich parents, of course they're going to be rich, right? That's not rocket science, okay? But see, the opposite is true. And a lot of times what keeps people financially impoverished is that they grew up with financial deprivation, right? And so the it doesn't mean, you see, because 90% of millionaires are self-made. So it doesn't mean that if you were born poor, if you were born middle class, which is a fancy way of saying you're poor, it doesn't mean that you can't become rich or wealthy. But what it means is that you haven't had someone to teach you. Okay. And a lot of these beliefs that you learn early on through your upbringing, through your family, actually reinforce the mental programming of poverty. Now, my father, we didn't grow up rich, right? But he was one of the hardest working men persons that I ever knew in my life, right? He worked countless hours, right? He had a daytime part-time job. He had a full-time evening job, and he used to freelance and do other things, right? But when he passed away back in 2000, he didn't leave us wealth. He did leave us some assets, but he didn't, there was no transference of wealth when my father passed away. But he worked extremely hard. He worked extremely hard, had a lot of jobs. And I remember one of his jobs for over 20 years, he worked at the Intercontinental Hotel in New York City, and he worked in housekeeping, right? And from where he was looking, he always used to say to me, "Man, he used to say to me that his dream would be for me to grow up and get a degree and be a manager at the hotel, right? Because he used to see the managers that they wore suits. They obviously made more money than him, and they were in charge, right? They were in charge of the housekeepers. They were in charge of the front desk people. They were in charge of the bell captains. They were right. They seemed to be in charge. And I used to say to him, management, Dad, who owns the hotel? Have you ever seen that guy? That's who I want to be. Now, I don't say this to put down my father. I'm just saying that from his vantage point, that to him was me having financial success. That to me was me doing better, right? Accomplishing more financially than he was able to accomplish because he came here from a different country, didn't fully learn the language or have a particular degree, and so he was working in a capacity that fit his skills and qualifications at the time. It's not to say that he couldn't become a manager, right? But he was working in the capacity that fit his skills at the time, and he thought that a step up would be if his son was one day the manager, right? What he thought was the boss, the man. But I, having the privilege of being born and raised in this country and seeing, growing up in New York City, seeing financial abundance and prosperity all over, my mind was like, who owns this, right? That's who I want to be. Okay. I don't want to be the person that works for the man. I want to be the man. And so I say it to say, because a lot of times we get handed down these influences from our well-meaning parents. I don't know if you guys know the story of Arnold Schwarzenegger, all right, who came here from another country. But growing up, Arnold Schwarzenegger, came from a country where, you don't get a lot of big movie stars, right? And his father was a police officer. And so his idea was that he wanted his son to be a police officer, right? He was a police officer, and he thought, I want my son to also be a police officer. He saw that as success, but Arnold Schwarzenegger had a different vision for his life. All right, he wanted to be Mr. Universe, a bodybuilding champion, a movie star. And I say this because sometimes you're going to have a vision for your life that does not fit into the vision that your family, your parents, or people who care for you have for you. All right. What they might deem as a successful and prosperous life for you may not fall into your scope of what you want to do with your life. But for many people, because we come from a good place, the Bible teaches honor your mother and your father, which you should. We want to appease them. We want to make them proud of us. And sometimes we're scared to go against that norm, to go against, their wishes, or we're just scared, we've just been programmed, right? Like if I had accepted my father's belief, I would have thought that the ceiling for me would be to be a hotel manager. And listen, there's nothing against being a manager of a hotel, of a restaurant. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. It's a very noble job. It's great. But what I'm saying is that sometimes we adopt certain beliefs about what we can do from our parents, from our family, from our upbringing, and we ourselves put this our own ceiling on ourselves of what your potential is. Okay, so that's the first thing: upbringing and family that keeps people from creating a wealth mindset. All right. Now, number two, second thing is their socioeconomic background. Now, this is a little bit different than your family and your upbringing, although it's related in a way. But the best way for me to illustrate this point is let me tell you the story, right? So when I was a junior in high school, I was on the football team for like 3 weeks. Okay. I have never really played organized football. I never got in the game. I'm not here to tell you I was a football player or I was on the football team, but I was on the team for about 3 weeks. Okay, you needed to have like 17 practices under your belt before you can actually even play in the game. So I never got to even play in the game. I got to practice with the team for a couple of weeks. But sometimes certain things that happen in your life, you know, they say that certain things are meant to teach you a lesson. And during those couple of weeks of my junior year in high school, when I was on the team, technically, I learned a very valuable lesson that I think that drives home this point about socioeconomic background. So I went to school in the South Bronx. I went to school at Cardinal Hayes in the Bronx, which at that time Cardinal Hayes was the worst football program in the whole city. Okay, now we're really good. Okay, now we're really good. We contend for the championship. We have a beautiful field. Back then, we had no home field. We played all of our games on the road, and our practice field was this dirt road behind the school, which was the parking lot for the teachers during the day. And after school, when the teachers all left, we practiced on this dirt, rocky road. No grass, no lines, nothing. Okay, and we were a terrible football team. So I remember that one time we had a scrimmage up in Westchester at this school named Ardsley, right? And when we went there, man, it was a whole new world, a whole new experience. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. Now, here we were, right, with crappy uniforms, crappy equipment, no field, no home field to play on, played all of our games on the road. And here we went up to the school in Westchester, in a town called Ardsley. They had a freshman team, a JV team, and a varsity team. All three teams had different uniforms and different helmets. All three teams had different fields. We didn't even have one home field. They had three home fields for their eat for three. So if you was a freshman, you didn't even play on the JV's field. If you was JV, you didn't play on varsity's field. It was crazy. Okay. And we got our butts kicked. And I remember the next week when we were at practice and coach was talking about the game, somebody made a snide remark, and basically to paraphrase, they kind of said, well, if we had all the stuff that Ardsley had, we'd be good too. And coach went off and he said something that every time I say it, I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. It has always stuck with me. He said that is why socioeconomically people stay socioeconomically deprived people stay socioeconomically deprived. And full disclosure, when he said that, I didn't know what he was talking about. Okay, I didn't know what economic deprivation meant at that time, but I know now. And basically, what he was saying is that because we grew up in this environment where we were broke and we had lack, we thought that that was the reason that other team beat us. The truth is that other team was better than us. They were more disciplined than us. Okay. It wasn't their field, it wasn't their uniforms. It's the fact that they were a better football team. Now, did they have certain advantages that we didn't have? Certain resources? Sure. Okay, sure. But that's not why we lost. All right. And a lot of times people grow up in certain environments and they say, oh, the reason that I'm not rich, the reason that I'm broke is because of my environment. Because, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. I didn't get to go to a private prep school. I didn't get to do this. I didn't have these resources. My parents weren't rich. I went to a public school. I didn't go to a private school. Like, you know what I mean? That's the reason that socioeconomically deprived people stay socioeconomically deprived. Because you believe that because of your circumstances, you cannot prosper, instead of believing that in spite of your circumstances, you're going to prosper. All right. So that's number two, socioeconomic background. Number three is cultural norms. Okay. Cultural norms. And that, again, that kind of is a play on the socioeconomic background, a play on your upbringing, because sometimes we grow up with certain ideologies that are socially accepted, and they're spread, right? Like maybe you've heard some of these things growing up, right? That I used to hear, like money doesn't grow on trees, right? Or or rich people are greedy, or all rich people are going to hell, or if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? We've heard all these different things, these social norms, these cultural norms, right? And and they get repeated so much that we start to accept them as being true. We start thinking that that only greedy and evil people can attain financial prosperity, all right? And that it's just not in the cards for us. Now, number four, media and entertainment. And this is a big one, all right? This is a big one, media and entertainment. And there's a lot of ways, like I can do a whole podcast just on this one topic, but I'm gonna attempt to be succinct here. There's a lot of ways that media and entertainment play a role in our poverty mental programming. You know, we live in a comparison age. We've always been a comparison age. When you were in kindergarten, kids were teasing each other, right? When you were in grade school, like some kid would get an A, some kid would get a C, and you're like, ha, you're dumb, right? People are always comparing themselves. But social media, the world that we live in today, has heightened this, where you see other people's lives, the perceived lives, because the irony about social media, nobody shows you their bad days. No one shows you their bad days. People always showing you their best days. Oh, look at me on this trip. Oh, look at me here. Look at me. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. No one's showing you their miserable days when they're crying, when they're struggling. No one shows you that. So you look around and you see other people's lives, and not only are you jealous of it, but you want to emulate it, right? We have that phrase, keeping up with the Joneses. So you have, there's a saying that says, people buy things that they can't afford to impress people that they don't even like. Okay. Movies play a big role, right? Because they glamorize these lifestyles that most people can't attain, and you feel as though that's not meant for you, right? That only certain people can live certain kind of lives. And I feel that there's certain kind of movies that I, at a very young age, subconsciously program you to believe that wealth and prosperity is evil. And I'm talking about specifically, superhero movies, right? We all grew up watching superhero movies, right? You take, for example, Superman, right? Here's this man, he's an orphan from parents on another planet living here. He has these superpowers, but who's his arch nemesis? Lex Luthor, who's a multimillionaire, right? And so from a kid, from a young age, you start seeing like, oh, look, the evil guy, he's really rich, right? The good guy is a poor little orphan, right? But the evil guy is really rich, right? Or Spider-Man, right? whose nemesis is the Green Goblin, who's also a multi-millionaire, billionaire scientist, right? And on a subconscious level, we start looking at these characters in our mind as though, Peter Parker, kid, right? Middle class, lower income family, but his arch nemesis is this rich guy, right? Now I know what you're thinking, right? Well, what about Batman? Batman was rich. Yeah, but Batman ain't have no superpowers. Okay. Batman was the only one that didn't have no superpowers. All right. Iron Man. Yeah, Iron Man was rich, but he was a narcissistic turd. Okay. Who used to, not the type of person that you want to be. Okay. Not the type of person that you want to be. So yeah, he was doing good stuff, technically, right? Had a lot of money, but he was a turd. Okay. So on a subconscious level, a lot of times movies and entertainment, and there's other ways that I can get into it, right? I grew up in an era with popular movies, New Jack City, anytime that you have a movie, The Godfather, right? Catch Me If You Can. Usually when you have movies where people are making money, they're usually doing something illicit. Let me give you this example. Let's say that you're driving, that you drive into a gas station, okay? That you drive into a gas station and someone pulls up in a Lamborghini, right? Do you think to yourself, oh, that person's driving a Lamborghini, they must have gone to school and gotten a good job? No, you don't think that. Okay. You're probably thinking that that person did something illicit to get that, because we have this association that wealth and financial prosperity is always attained by ill-gotten means, and that's just not true. All right. So media and entertainment, that's number 4. Okay. Number 5 is personal experience or trauma. Perhaps either you have seen someone suffer financial loss, or you yourself have suffered financial loss or setbacks. All right. And now as a result of that, you're less willing to take advantage of an opportunity. You're less willing to take a particular risk because you're overconsumed with thinking about all the things that can go wrong. You know, you see, faith and doubt are both belief. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Faith and doubt are both belief. Faith is the belief in a favorable outcome that you desire. Doubt is the belief in an unfavorable outcome that you don't desire. And so what cripples a lot of people, what keeps a lot of people trapped, right, in this mental prison, what keeps a lot of people broke is that perhaps they've experienced some past failure, some past financial setback. And now instead of having the ability to act with conviction and stepping out on faith, they're filled with doubt. They're filled with anxiety because they stay stuck. They stay stuck reliving that negative outcome, and they keep thinking, well, what if this happens? This happened before. What if it happens? Okay. Nothing positive can come from a negative mind. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Nothing positive can come from a negative mind. All right. So that's number 5, personal experience of trauma. Number 6, education and schooling. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe no one ever told you this, but education is a great way to be broke. Okay. Now, am I saying you should not get an education? Am I saying you should not go to school? That's not what I'm saying. Okay. But what I'm saying is that school is designed to teach you to be an employee for someone else. Think about it. Think about it. In school, you're never taught to think or be creative. You're taught to memorize things, and then you get tested on your memorization. All right. You keep your eyes on your own paper. Don't look at Sally. Don't look at Billy's paper. That's cheating. All right. There's only one right answer. Okay? And whatever we tell you it is, that's what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not the real world. Okay? That prepares you to be an employee. But in the real world, in the world of business, in the world of wealth creation, wealth and businesses are created and run by teams. It's not called cheating in the real world. It's called collaboration, cooperation. There's not one right answer. There's many right answers. There's many wrong answers. Okay? In school, you're taught not to make mistakes. In the real world, you have to make mistakes. You have to fail your way to the top. There's someone that said success is standing on the mountain of all your failures. Whereas people that see themselves as a failure are just buried under that mountain. Okay? So school prepares you, indoctrinates you to be an employee, not to think, not to be creative, but to follow instruction and to go work for someone else. So a lot of times people, they think that the only way to make money is by getting a job, right? You've probably been told this by your parents or someone: go to school, get a good education so you can get a good job. Listen, that's all well and great. I'm not down on jobs. I'm just saying you can never get wealthy by working a job. You can never get wealthy by working a job. Now, you can make money on a job and then use that money to work for you by either starting a business and or investing and then create wealth, all right? So, I'm not saying don't work a job. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow if you want to be wealthy. You may need to stay at that job, okay? You may need to stay at that job for the foreseeable future. But the point is that if your idea of making money is trading time for money, you'll never be wealthy because time is a limited resource. Okay. And a job will never pay you what you're worth. They're only going to pay you what that job is worth. Right. If you work at a McDonald's, it doesn't matter if you're the best employee that ever graced McDonald's. There's only a certain amount of money they're going to pay you. And there's only a certain amount of hours that you can work physically. Okay. If you're in management, guess what? You're about to take a pay cut. They're going to pay you a higher salary. You're going to work you more hours. So you're actually making less oftentimes than the people you manage. All right. But I digress. So, number 7, it's your peer influence or your social circle, right? It's often been said that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Okay. And this is true. We're social creatures. You see, if you and another person are walking down the street together, and let's say that person is walking at a much faster pace than you, there's something called the law of synchronization. All right. And subconsciously, without anything being said, either you're going to speed up to walk alongside that person or they're going to slow down. But usually it's both. Usually that person slows down and you speed up. And so the people that you spend your time with, if they are not interested, active in talking about money and talking about creating wealth and trying things and taking advantage of opportunities and starting a business and investing their money, if they're just on the 40-40 plan, right? Which is work 40 hours a week, 40 hours of your life so you can retire and live on 40% of your income. There's a good chance that you're going to be on that same plan with them because we're social creatures. Okay? We're social creatures. I mean, think about this. Do you realize you ever seen like rappers, people that skateboard, people that are into heavy metal, people that are athletes, people that are lawyers? You ever notice how they all dress the same, walk the same, talk the same? It's the law of synchronization. Whoever you spend the most time with, you become. Okay? So this is usually one of the biggest things right here that keeps people in that poverty mental programming. They surround themselves with people that have limiting beliefs around money. They surround themselves with people who are broke and don't want more for their life. That is often the biggest single thing. You see, if you want to be someone who plays basketball all the time, you have to go hang out with people that play basketball. Because if the people that you hang out with all the time never want to play basketball, either you're going to have to leave them or you're going to have to not play basketball to hang out with them. But they're not going to change. Okay? You can't change people, you can only change yourself. So if you're hanging out, if you're trying to break out of the broke trap, if you're trying to change your mental broke programming, the first thing that you're going to have to do is find new friends. Friends who are making money, who prioritize making money, who talk about making money, who look for opportunities to work together, collaborate, and make money. Step your game up. All right. You're going to have to step your game up. You're going to have to get new friends. All right. Like I said at the beginning, your current mindset is the reason you're broke. Your current mindset is the reason you're broke. All right. Now, number 8, we're wrapping up here. We got 3 more to go. Number 8, a fear of failure or risk aversion. Now, growing up, we had this saying, right? Said, scared money don't make money. A lot of people are just risk averse. A lot of people are just scared of failing. Okay. But you see, I want to clarify that because what they're experiencing is not actually fear. You see, fear, one of my biggest mentors said something that I disagree with. There's this acronym around fear that a lot of people say, and they say fear stands for false evidence appearing real. Okay, one of my biggest mentors said that. False evidence. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Well, I'm sorry to have to be the one to break this. That's actually not true. Okay? Fear is real. But what fear is the feeling that you get when there is a clear and present danger. So, for example, if you're walking down the street and all of a sudden a lion pops out, you're going to be overcome with fear. It's not false evidence, it's a real lion. Okay? It's a clear and present danger. Why? Because you know that lion can rip you to shreds and have you for lunch. So when people have fear, when they have real fear, it's justified. There's danger. There's a clear and present danger. So when I talk about fear of failure, it's not actually fear of failure. Okay? Because if you invest $500 on something and you lose $500, like, that is not going to be the reason that you spend the rest of your life being broke. Okay? That's not actually like a real danger, right? The way running into a lion or a bear is a real danger, right? You might lose your life, you might get torn to shreds. That's danger. Losing $500 is not dangerous. People go to casinos every single day, lose money every single day. Now, the repercussions of that loss, right, could present danger, but not real danger. So what people really have is anxiety. Again, like I was mentioning before, doubt. They have doubt. They have the belief that they're going to get an unfavorable, undesirable outcome. And so a lot of times the reason that people are risk averse, that they won't take a risk, that they won't take advantage of an opportunity, is because they are in their mind entertaining all of the things that could go wrong, that they don't desire for those things to go wrong, instead of having faith, right? Which is the belief in a desirable outcome. Okay, so risk aversion, quote unquote, fear of failure and anxiety around failure. Number 9 is the lack of role models. Okay. The fastest way for you to accomplish anything is to find someone who's already done it and do exactly what they did or a version thereof, right? Maybe you don't follow everything that they did to the T. Maybe you have to modify some things for you, but still the principle applies. Okay, I was a chef for many, many years, right? But I didn't invent cooking. First, I learned to cook from my mother, right? Then I went to culinary school. Then I worked for a lot of chefs and food service establishments. So my skill came from me following the mentorship, the instruction of other people who had done it before. My mom was probably the best cook that I know. And I know a lot of people say that, but I mean it. Okay. My mom was probably the best cook that I know. All right. And before I went to culinary school, I learned to cook from my mother. I've been cooking since I was 5 years old. All right. I didn't just, a lot of people say that they're self taught, but you're not really self taught, right? You just may not have schooling, but you're still getting your mentorship and your instruction from somewhere. Maybe it's a cookbook, maybe it's a video. Okay. You're not just, you at some point you learn from some influence how food works together, right? You may not learn from a school. People say that they're self-taught when they didn't go to a formal school, but trust me, they learn from someone. They learn from some system. Okay. So something that keeps people in that broke poverty mindset and that broke programming is that they don't seek out role models or mentors who have the success that they desire and who can help you speed up the process. You see, when you find yourself a mentor, when you find yourself a role model, that person is not going to teach you new proprietary information that you can't get from somewhere else. You can learn it on your own. It'll just take longer. All right. Think about, if you're I'm in Philadelphia. So think about if you're in Philadelphia and you want to drive to LA. Okay. What most people would do, they would get a GPS, right? They would get a map, or they would at least talk to someone who has driven to LA and say, hey, what do I do? Right? What interstates do I take? What highways do I take? Okay. How do I get there? That is the fastest way, right? If you take a train or you take a plane, that plane is relying on a map. They're gonna get there the most fuel efficient, time efficient way to get there because they make money, right, by transporting you. So it's not in their interest to spend time or fuel taking the longest way possible. But if you don't rely on any other source and you just say, I'm just gonna leave the house and I'm gonna start going this way, I'm gonna follow the sun so I know which way is west, which way is east, there's a good chance that you will eventually get to LA. Okay, there's a good chance that you will eventually get there. A chance. All right? But will you get there as fast as possible? Probably not. Okay? It might take you 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, 100 times longer than if you just have followed a recipe, a map, a guide. Okay? So if you want to break out of that mental poverty programming, find a role model, find a mentor. All right. It could be someone on YouTube that you follow, it could be books. Okay. Find a roadmap for someone who has the success that you desire and do what they did. All right. And the last one before we get out of here, and that's your personal mindset. And when I talk about personal mindset, remember, we're talking about how to adopt a wealth mindset. And I said at the beginning that we already have a mindset, we already have a set of beliefs which we have accepted as being true. So if you're broke, all right, it means that there's something lacking in your personal mindset. It usually means that you have some form of either low self esteem, feeling of unworthiness that keeps you from prospering, that keeps you from implementing the things that you need to get a different result. And what that boils down to, oftentimes, most of the time, is a lack of confidence. Okay? People have a lack of confidence. And what is confidence? Confidence is trust. It comes from the word confide, right? Which means to trust in yourself. And the reason that most people have low confidence is because you don't keep your word to yourself. You say you're going to do something, you don't do it. You say you say you're gonna read this book, you don't read it. You say you're gonna make this video, you don't make it. You say you're gonna be here on time, you get there late. And so you have lied to yourself so many times. You have not kept your self promises so many times that inside you know that you cannot be trusted. So you might even find an opportunity that sounds great. Someone says to you, hey, listen, there's this opportunity. And you're like, wow, that sounds great. I would love to do that. And the person's like, don't worry about it. I'm going to help you. And you're like, man, that's great. I got the role model. I got the mentor. I got the map. But man, every time I say I'm going to do something, I quit. Every time that and so you lack confidence. You lack confidence because like Dave Chappelle said, you're habitual, right? You habitually lie to yourself. You habitually let yourself down. And so deep down in the coffers of your mind, I cannot count on me. And you're scared that you're going to do it again, right? Because you have a track record, a history of being unreliable onto yourself. Okay? Now, the good news is these things can be overcome. These things can be overcome, but it starts with having an awareness, okay? Having an awareness of which of these things is keeping you back, with you finding the right social environment, okay? That can allow you to start changing your thinking. You see, because I kept talking about that programming, and that's exactly what it is. There's a programming inside of you. Your brain your subconscious is running this automatic programming and is creating the results that you have right now in your life. And so if you want to change that, if you want to shift that paradigm, you have to be able to adopt a new program. You have to get rid of the current program and install a new program. That can start with reading books. That can start with listening to videos like this one, or listening to podcasts like this one. You have to start somewhere. First, you have to have an awareness. And secondly, you have to take intentional action. It's not going to happen on its own. It's not going to happen because you quote unquote speak it into existence or desire it. You have to take action. Okay. And when I talk about, reading books or watching videos or listening to podcasts, it's not just about reading the book or listening to the podcast or watching the videos. You have to take action. You can't, excuse my piano. You can't get a six pack by reading a book on how to get a six pack. At some point, you got to put the book down. You got to get on the floor and you have to start doing crunches, start doing planks, start doing windshield wipers, start doing Russian twist, whatever it is. Okay. You have got to take action. So, guys, I thank you for joining me on this episode of the Wealth Mindset Podcast. I hope you found value in this. If so, please, wherever you're at, subscribe to the podcast, help me spread my message, share this with someone that you feel could be impacted by this message. I will see you in the next episode. Until then, God bless, be amazing. Peace.